Welcome to Open for Small Business. Today, I am so excited to have the gorgeous Emma Lewisham with me on the couch. Thank you for joining me, Emma.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Emma is, I'm sure all our listeners are aware that you are the founder of Emma Lewisham Skincare, an amazing skincare business. And Emma and I have had lots of conversations in the past, so it's really exciting for me to be able to talk to you again today on the podcast. So, Emma, we're going to get straight into it. Give me the beginnings of Emma Lewisham Skincare. Where did the idea come from? Because obviously you've been in business for a little while now. What was the genesis of the idea for you?
I never set out to launch a beauty brand. So there was absolutely a genesis, and it came from a personal problem that I have. And I genuinely think the best businesses are built on solving problems and a genuine gap in the market. And I think that's why we have had traction globally. It was now like 9 years ago, and I was going through a period in my life where I was trying to get pregnant and having some fertility challenges. And I was someone that's very acutely aware of like health and well-being from losing my mother really young to cancer. It was always something very front of mind to me that we're not bulletproof. And so lots of aspects of my life, I was really thoughtful and considered in terms of like my health and what I did and how that impacted it.
Yeah.
When I was talking to a fertility doctor about my journey, they actually raised with me and asked the question what I was putting on my skin. And I, up until that point, hadn't really considered that as part of this like wider like health and well-being aspect that I needed to consider.
Yeah.
But it made total sense when they explained, the skin is our largest organ and what we put on it does have an impact on our health.
100%.
And I was using a product called hydroquinone because I had like really bad hyperpigmentation, which is something, Australian women and New Zealand women really struggle with because of the sun and sort of like the brown spots that develop in your skin.
Absolutely, yeah.
That are triggered from too much sun. And I think, growing up in New Zealand, and we probably weren't as vigilant as we are now with sunscreen.
Absolutely.
So I mentioned hydroquinone and they'd said, look, do not use that. It is actually really questionable and in many countries banned. And I thought, wow,
Really?
Yeah, you just trust, or I trusted what I got and was given or were using, that of course that it would be like safe and the ingredients really thoughtful, especially when you're buying from luxury brands, right? That present this picture of like real quality and luxury and beauty and efficacy. And that is what I was used to using. So being someone that's always been incredibly like curious, challenge the status quo, having a background in both business and science, I started to sort of dig into what was in skincare, what was in the products that I was using. And it's just so fascinating that what you see on the outside is not always reflective of what's in the bottle. I went down a path of wanting natural skincare, and I was sort of directed to sort of the health stores, and what you found at the time were, nice formulations, but quite simple and at times a little bit gunky and funky with how they smelled and felt and lacked evidence and real science. And it was really like this light bulb moment that went off in me that went, nature and putting natural ingredients is good for us and the most innate thing to our bodies.
Yeah.
Why can't we also have something that's contemporary, luxurious to use, but had a real evidence and science? If you think about the intelligence of nature, there must be a way to achieve that. And it was that problem that I set out to solve and essentially worked tirelessly until I did.
I mean, it's so true because I discovered your products and we were introduced through a mutual friend when I was going through my breast cancer treatment. And it's the same thing. I had no idea about, the skin, what we put on our skin, just never even thought about it. And so obviously discovering your products was amazing because, I became very much a clean beauty fan. But until that point, I think it's kind of, you'd go only into a Whole Foods store, you'd find some kind of batch made product that, like your point, you thought was natural because it was kind of made in someone's kitchen and didn't have any chemicals in it. But actually what you've managed to do is bring clean beauty into a really aesthetically beautiful kind of packaging, and the way you've you tell your story. It's so inspiring, and I think has made clean beauty something that people are now thinking about and talking about, and something that's actually far more accessible. So you had the idea, you went through your fertility challenges and kind of thought that this was a problem you wanted to solve. How did you go from that spark, that thought, to actually taking a step towards turning it into what has become Emma Lewisham Skincare?
Yeah, it's a good question. And that's a challenge, because I think a lot of people come up with ideas, right? But it's how you put that into motion.
Yeah,
sure. For me, I had this vision of what it could be. I was in a role where I was working for a Japanese global technology company and traveling the world, and had this real understanding and kind of concept of the global markets and how to take things globally. And so I had this vision from the start that this brand could be one that would be global and could compete with the Estee Lauders of the world. That's a lofty goal, but you got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
And it was very much one step at a time. I always had that vision in mind, but it was small steps. And, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Yeah. And you really had to break it down. And there is a lot of just like figuring it out, rolling up your sleeves, Googling things, asking people, not being afraid to feel silly. Because the reality was, I was in a really good job and career, and all of a sudden I'm saying to friends and family that I want to have a skincare brand. And I think that was at the start the hardest part, because people thought that it was ridiculous and would kind of smirk at me and be like, this is kind of not going to happen, And I think that's the biggest challenge, is you're overcoming that fear and maybe a bit of embarrassment at the start and what people will think. But I knew in my gut that I was onto something, and I really believed in what we were doing. And I just didn't let that get to me. I really didn't. And so I just chipped away at it. I was fortunate to have a really incredible person in the team that was working with me, and she became a co-founder. And together we just became a great unit, and we believed in what we were doing, and one step at a time. And we weren't afraid to look silly or ask silly questions, and just, you've just got to start. You've really just got to start and not be afraid to reach out to people. And it's a big learning curve. There's so much I didn't know, but if you're really determined enough, you figure it out.
Well, it takes huge resilience, right? Because you were in a well-paid job, and to walk away from that, it's a risk. But, obviously believe so deeply in your mission and the idea of what you could do, that it was motivating enough for you to take that leap. Yes. Did you start the business before you had your daughter?
She was 4 months old when I launched the company.
What a time!
No one told me that it wasn't. But I think there is never any good time, but that was a particularly challenging time, especially like going into COVID. Yeah, but look, you've got to have a really positive mindset, and you have to be incredibly resilient and take each day at a time. Some are harder than the others. You pick yourself back up again and keep going, and you're the only one that can do it for yourself. You've got to have that steeliness and resilience, and that just absolute positivity that anything is thrown at you, you're going to overcome. And I think attitude with entrepreneurs is just everything, absolutely everything. And you have to be the most pig-headed, determined, hard-working person to break through and achieve. I can't understate that enough. And for us to break through globally in the beauty world it's next to impossible. I'll tell you that it is 100%. So challenging.
Yeah.
You've got to be prepared to just be relentless and just incredibly determined.
And so aside from your determination, which, I can feel it, it's palpable, what do you think, what was it about what you were doing that really helped you to break through? Because I'm sure others have tried. In fact, there are lots of people probably still trying, but you have done incredibly well. You've caught the attention of, people all around the world. You had a dialogue and a kind of a relationship with the late Jane Goodall. So you've really kind of made it in ways that many other brands haven't been able to. So what do you put that down to? Aside from your personal kind of determination.
Yes, I think it's like a number of things that have to be done consistently and in congruence with one another. I think what we had to offer, like our formulations, I genuinely believe are the best in the world. And I think, and I'm so proud of that coming from New Zealand, of what we've created from here. We approached formulations in a completely different way and still do. And I think this was the benefit of not coming from a beauty background, coming from a technology background that put the problem at the core. When we started developing skincare, looking at the industry with a fresh pair of eyes, skincare was developed around ingredients and trends and what was buzzing. So you see a lot of vitamin C serums. I stepped back and thought, well, no, the problem here is solving a skin concern on the skin. So why are we not formulating for how the skin works? And that was such a turning point for us, and why we now have formulations that are top sellers and Mecca and the Space NKs and in London and in America, because we've fundamentally flipped formulations on its head and created something that genuinely is revolutionary in delivering results that have never been seen before. If you formulate skincare for the skin, you create formulations that have multiple ingredients, work as a system, work in synergy to unlock how the skin works, because it is so wildly complex. And so we use up to 24 actives in the formulations versus like 1 or 2. And the way that we're doing things, and that's just one example, has always been looking at it with a critical eye and approaching it completely differently to the rest of the industry. And it's that thread and through line through the whole business that I think has given us something just truly different and something that's resonating with women. They're seeing the results. We have one of the highest customer return rates in Mecca because of the products genuinely working and the level of quality. And so fundamentally, you have to have brilliant products that are genuinely distinct, which I believe we have. So that's a big part of it, right? It has to be the core of it.
100%.
You can have the best marketing. And I think we do a great job on the branding and story and marketing side. But like, we are a science business and a product business. That is my bread and butter, my passion. Every day I am working on the formulations to make them the best in the world. And we don't skip on anything. So I think you'd be surprised at just what a distinction and difference that is versus a lot that's approached from a marketing angle.
Yeah, so you made the comment before, and excuse my ignorance, you said you formulate for the skin and how the skin works.
Yes.
What are other brands doing if they're not formulating for the skin, formulating for marketing, for brand?
There's a lot of trends that pop up. For example, of like mushrooms getting a trend or a hype. There'll be formulations that are developed around mushrooms, but that's very much around the ingredient, right?
Yeah.
But the skin has multiple processes, responses, interconnected web of activity that just putting one ingredient just scratch the surface of what it can actually unlock. So I think we're looking at it from a purist form and a real science and the laws of nature and formulating in a way that matches and mirrors the skin. Versus around what's happening in the market around trending ingredients or vitamin C being really popular and delivering even what the customer wants. And in a way, we've gone against what the customer wants because a lot of them come in saying, I want a vitamin C serum. And we're having to educate them that, well, we have vitamin C as one ingredient in the formulation, but it's so much more because vitamin C alone isn't enough to solve what you are wanting to solve.
So how do you manage that when you sell through, say, a Mecca? How do you help that education piece for, like, do you get the opportunity to train their staff on the product?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So we have such a great relationship with Mecca, and in New Zealand, they're number one skincare brand, which is phenomenal when you're competing against the L'Oreal's. And there's
so many skincare brands in Mecca that, to be number one is, such an achievement.
And I think a big part of that is the time that we've given to their store staff to really educate them on how we are doing things, explain the formulations, the products, and to champion them, because ultimately they're an extension of our team. So it's been something that we've uniquely done to really show up at the ground level, I will go into the stores a lot and give my time to talk to the store staff, because I also learn so much from them, hearing it from, they're right at the coalface with our customers. And so we have that opportunity to get in front. I'll go to Australia in annually and do conferences with their wider Australia and New Zealand team, and there's lots of opportunities. And Mecca really do put such an emphasis on their store teams, really respect, treat them incredibly well, and education is such a passion of theirs. So we're really fortunate, and I think so another thing I've learned in the sort of the entrepreneurial journey is finding the right partners that align with your values
100%.
and what is important to your brand and it's succeeding. And that's where our relationship and marriage with Mecca is so brilliant, because we really value the same things. And it's,
I actually yesterday, and this is not a plug for Mecca, but I did speak to a friend yesterday whose daughter's just recently got a job working in one of their stores, and she was telling me how incredible the environment is, and the training and the recruitment process, and just it's sort of far beyond what I ever imagined. And it's not easy to get a product into Mecca. I have a friend who's been trying to go through that as well. So obviously getting in there, when you did a few years ago, huge feat, but just testament to the fact that your products are incredible and obviously quite well known in lots of parts of the world now.
Thank you.
So Emma, you launched your brand, and your husband joined you in the business, I understand. So how does that work? The two of you kind of both putting everything into the business as a couple, and you've got a child. How do you manage that?
That's right. My husband joined 6 months before we launched, and his background was he was a lawyer and also had experience in the finance side. But interestingly, he had to sort of also learn how to sort of set up our operation and global third-party logistics, and sort of turn his skill set into like other areas of business. But so a lot of people say to me, I could never work with my husband.
I'm one of those people that would say that.
But you might be surprised. Look, I honestly couldn't have done it without him. We have been such a great team. We are yin and yang, which I think you need.
Yeah,
He's
sure.
like the lawyer that reviews things with like a risk perspective, and he's really structured and just great values and so many good things that just complement me. I'm a bit more entrepreneurial and like free-spirited, and he comes and puts a bit more of the rigor and structure around it all. But we've just had the most incredible journey doing it together, and I think it's really strengthened our relationship, and it's been just amazing to see him in that capacity, because you really don't know if your husband's that good in their job, right?
I know, totally. I know, you're like, you get to see him first.
It's a bit of a risk. But he really is, and so it's made me respect and love him even more, and it's just been the most incredible journey doing it together. So maybe you first. Maybe that inspires.
I mean, I do love my husband, but man, no way. I think actually he couldn't work with me. Probably is how I'd phrase that. So Emma, you now, I think I told this anecdote when you came in to speak to Zeros at work, that when I was in London a couple of years ago, I'd run out of one of your products, and I was frantically like searching where I could buy it in London. And I went to this very swanky department store, and there was this beautiful Emma Lewisham counter and set up. And I was like, wow, I felt really proud of a Kiwi brand doing so well in that part of the world. But how have you grown the business? So you started in New Zealand, but how long after starting did you try and move into Australia or the UK? Tell me about that growth story.
Absolutely. Wow, I'm so pleased. And I hope it inspires other New Zealand businesses that they too can achieve that, and it is within their reach. And I love to see other New Zealand businesses succeed, and especially like women giving things a go and believing in themselves. I just don't think we have enough of that. So if my story in any way can help another, and that's really meaningful to me. We very much started focusing on Australia and New Zealand, and the strategy was to get our home markets and really cement the brand here before we got bright-eyed and looked internationally at the US and the UK. And that was a really deliberate move. We wanted to get the business also to a place that it was a really good cash position to be able to support and invest in emerging markets because it is expensive when you're going into and breaking into markets like the UK and the US. It's an expensive exercise. There's a lot more competition. The game that you're playing is just another jump up and level. And we just see that New Zealand in itself, there's so much opportunity in growth, and we really wanted to do it justice. And I wanted to bring our products and what we had to offer to the New Zealand customers. So we focused really solely here for the first 3 years. And the goal, because we always set goals as to what we wanted to achieve, was to get into Mecca. So much so that when we were developing the brand, when we were looking at the colors, I went into Mecca to see what colors were not on the shelves, and purple.
Wow, what a good, simple, yet very effective strategy.
Yes. So there was 2 reasons. The color of the skin under the microscope is purple and pink, and so it was a nod to us formulating for the skin. And then guess what sealed the deal was going into Mecca and being like, what color do they not have and is going to really stand out? And that was purple.
I did not know that. In all our conversations, I've never learned that fact. And I have always loved your packaging and your colours as well, because they do stand out. I think that, and they look beautiful in a bathroom as well, which is nice.
And again, in natural skincare, something that was contemporary and luxury, and also, I don't know, there was so much at the time when we were developing the brand that went very Scandinavian neutral ways. And I wanted to bring emotion and warmth and something beautiful on a piece of art.
Dare I say it's quite feminine as well, which is really lovely for skincare to be feminine, because we are, predominantly, I imagine it's females using your products. Although probably not exclusively.
Of husbands stealing the products.
Yeah. My husband's definitely used my moisturizers on occasion when his man moisturizer that he's bought has run out. But actually, that's a sidebar. But have you thought about bringing out a specific formulation for men?
We actually are just trying to get men more into it and not be afraid of the purple, because the formulations are for men and female physiology of the skin. And we are seeing more men embrace it. In markets like Australia, we have a really high percentage of male customers.
Really? That's fascinating.
Yes, and New Zealand growing. So that's something that we're trying to incorporate a bit more into our communication and marketing. So yeah,
that's great. Coming back to your business. So scaling, you focused on New Zealand. Then you wanted to make a move into Australia. And then what was the clincher to actually get into the UK? Because obviously that's challenging, it's expensive. But you've got you've spent quite a lot of time over there, from I understand it.
Yes.
You've had a beautiful partnership with Vogue, was it Vogue? Yeah. So tell us about how that came about.
So I think the benefits of focusing on Australia and New Zealand meant that, and especially getting into Mecca, they have such a global reputation.
Yeah, right.
And all the retailers around the world are looking at what brands they launch. And we launched into Australia and New Zealand. We're now on all their doors across both markets. And again, we just performed. We did a really excellent job. And the UK retailer Space NK, which is the Mecca equivalent, had asked Mecca, what brands are doing really well and performing, and asked about Emma Lewisham. And so that partnership and success there was the platform to go into the UK with Space NK, which again is one of the it's the best luxury beauty retailer in the UK.
Amazing.
They've been phenomenal partners to us, and our UK growth has been so strong, 100% year on year.
Wow.
And it's just really going from strength to strength there. And that's probably because we've really, again, nurtured that market and been really consistent. We have a team up there now in London, where we have the last 3 years. We have a warehouse there, so we have a mixed model where we have retailers like Liberty and Harrods and Space NK and Cult Beauty, and then we have our direct-to-consumer as well, which is growing. So it's a really exciting market. We're really proud of the traction that we've got there, and just the way that we've executed it, and the team that I've had up there have just done an incredible job of building the brand and yeah, it totally takes time. I think the British customers, which is great, they're really discerning and they're not convinced like easily. So you have to really pay your dues. That is so good to see that like hard work and commitment and tenacity really paying off.
Yeah. And do you think being a Kiwi brand helps you stand out? Or do you think that they don't really care? It's more about the quality of the product?
I think it does. I think New Zealand's got such a great reputation internationally. It really does. It's such a proud like Kiwi moment being in those markets where they speak so highly of the country, and everyone just says how beautiful, and they think of innovation and nature and clean and all the things that the brand represents, right? So it's such a accelerator for the brand and the story, and kind of like does some heavy lifting for us. I will say in Australia, not so much. And I think they've sort of stolen the brand as an Australian.
This happens constantly. Why is this?
So I don't know. I think because we're Mecca, Australia, and Mecca is an Australian brand.
They just assume.
They've just assumed that it's so that Australia is really tricky, really tough to break into, and all markets have their nuance. It's really fascinating, but very much loved working with teams and retailers up in the UK.
And so what about the US? Obviously, massive market. That's kind of the next horizon?
Well, we are already in the US with retailers. So Credo, Goop, through Gwyneth Paltrow. We've been in Naomi Watts' spa clinics that she has. And then this month we launch excitingly into Bluemercury, which is a really exciting, like quite dominant, like luxury beauty retailer that's across all states in the US. And so that's happening this month. So that's why we've been so busy over even the Christmas period preparing for that, because it's an incredible opportunity for the brand, and one that we've been working on for 2 years. So that expansion is happening from this month in the US. And so we've been like setting up with teams. We've got a warehouse now there in Chicago.
Wow.
I'm going to go up and spend time. We've got a team member heading off next week to visit all the stores across the States, and I'll get over there in the next few months to do so too. So that's
huge.
Yeah. So it's really, we're excited about it. We're sort of going in when we get the right partners and really working and leveraging and reaching through their channels to their customers. And I think that's been so key to all of our growth and expansion into new markets, is to get the right partners who, again, do a lot of heavy lifting for you because of their reputation and distribution and customer base.
Have there been partners that have approached you that you've said no to because your values didn't align, or you didn't kind of like the way they did business? Or do you think that because you've been very clear about your brand from the outset, that really it's the partners that have come to you or have wanted to work with you are the ones that you can see as synergy with off the bat?
There are times you say no because you're building a brand and there's specific adjacencies or how you want that brand to be portrayed and represented in the market. And that's sometimes hard because you can be offered some really strong volumes, and that's where you're tested and going, okay, you're going to take the quick wins, or you're building a brand that's going to be here in 100 years, which we are building. So it's, that's the tricky thing with business. You're constantly challenged in terms of your like values and whether you're going to say well no to that sale in this pursuit of building a heritage brand. So there has been times. Absolutely.
I love that discipline and that commitment to your brand, because it must be tempting when you are building your business to think about the quick wins versus building for that longevity.
Yes.
But huge admiration for you that you have been so committed to what you're building. And I love that you've talked about building a brand for 100 years or more. I think that's something we often in New Zealand, we don't think long term enough about where we want brands to go, or businesses start with a goal of, I want to be able to buy a batch or a boat, and that's it. But actually having that growth mindset and that, global expansion and that longevity is so inspirational.
Absolutely.
And there are some amazing businesses that have been around for so many years in New Zealand. Often we don't talk about them or celebrate them enough. But we want
your feet.
We want lots of small businesses to have that aspiration to be around for a long time.
Agree. Really agree.
Well, Eva, that's a nice segue into talking about, the toll that running a business can take on you personally. We, at Xero, we're launching a emotional tax return campaign to tie in with the end of financial year, sort of a different take on what the end of financial year means. But, there is an emotional toll as a business owner. There are things that you have to sacrifice to get ahead, because you live and breathe it 24/7, don't you? I mean,
absolutely,
it's your life. And particularly, you work with your husband, so it's a full family affair.
Yes.
How do you cope with that? So how have you've obviously been in business for a few years now. How have you managed to kind of keep going when you know that there are times when it's just the business is really taking a toll on you?
Because there is immense sacrifice. There really is. When I'm in a meeting internationally, my daughter's competing in her first cross country, or attending her first disco and I'm not there. Like, there is a lot of sacrifice on the family side that comes with it. And that is just the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
And the other sacrifice is just, as you say, that emotional toll. Like, it is so brutal. It really is. There has been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into this. And I just can't overstate that. It's pushed me to my limits, this company, more than anything in my life. And at times you don't know if you have the strength to carry on with what you've thrown, like, day after day. It's the relentless nature of it all. I think I've just remained positive. I am resilient. You probably don't realize how strong you are until you are in those situations. And to be honest, there's been no other option other than to keep going and just to pick yourself up and go, well, tomorrow's another day and a fresh start. And so, there are things that I do to keep me going. And on the hard side, there's also a lot of growth and learning and amazing things that have come out of it and shaping who I am and giving me greater empathy for people and situations, and feeling really grateful about the opportunities in life that I have. And I just don't think I would have felt all those emotions not going down this path, because it is all the emotions that you feel.
All spectrum. Yeah.
But it's good to be real that it's really tough. It's a really, really tough journey.
I think we've got some research coming out, and one of the stats that sticks in my mind is about 47% of business owners say that they've, at times they've come, wanted to just stop because it's been so hard. The stress has been too much. So when you've felt that, what has it been that's kept you going? I mean, you're obviously really determined and you have a vision, but has there been a time when you've thought, actually, this is just too hard. I'm going to stop. Can't be bothered.
Yes, there would have been times like that where I've thought, I'm not enjoying this, would be the main thing. And so what I would do at that time is go, again, if I'm going to be in this, if this is around for 100 years, what do I need to do to make sure I do enjoy it?
Yeah.
So I think there's a different way that you can look at it and step back and go, okay, I'm not maybe enjoying it because there's too stress, too much pressure. Okay, what can I do to alleviate that? Do I have the right people? Do I have the right systems? I think it's taking that radical ownership and like stopping and trying to be a bit more like rational about it.
Yeah.
Going, I'm going to be in this until the end of time. What do I got to change to enjoy it? And that perspective has really helped shift and make some decisions that have helped with that whole, the challenge and the toughness of it all. And ultimately, there's going to be things that are stressful, but you still want to enjoy it, right?
Of course.
And get to a point where there are things that happen, but you also have a bit of a shared load to that and people around you. So I think it's, taking a different look at it and just trying to go, no, I'm going to like approach this differently. What are those things that I can change to improve the situation?
What part of your day-to-day job do you like the most? What do you enjoy the most?
the problem solving, working with our team. Like, we've got such a great group of people, got a lot of like younger females that I love, sort of mentoring and see them achieve and rise in their roles. Meeting interesting, great people from all over the world that I'm learning from, and just enjoy their company and become friends for me. So I think that personal interaction, meeting customers with like incredible stories, because we all have a story, and how the brand has sort of touched them in some way. Yeah, the people interaction. I love the science. I love the formulations. I love solving things that haven't been solved. The variety, I'd say.
Wow, it's just, so impressive. I'm such a fan, and every time I hear you speak, you're so eloquent and you tell your story so beautifully. I know that you're so inspiring for lots of other business owners. Emma, coming up to the end of financial year, you're obviously, you're leading your business, so there's so much that you're managing, and you've got, now you're in a position where you've got other people to help you. What role have advisors played in your journey? Like, have you got a mentor? Do you work with a great accountant? Is there someone that's really kind of given you that advice when you've been like, I have no idea what I'm doing?
Yes, we've had a lot along the way that have like helped in different areas of the business too. And I think it's you can't sort of like buy wisdom. You almost you have to go through it, right, to get that wisdom. And sometimes it's not that you're not strong at something, you're not good, you just haven't had that experience. And so it's looking for people that have had that experience and can share those insights and that wisdom that can kind of help you in what you're going through. To name a few, we've had like Rob Fife involved in the company for a number of years now, and he's just such a visionary and just incredibly smart and wise, and this is really supported and helped us. More recently, we've had some advisors in Australia who are sort of ex-CEO of like major companies over there, who again have been just such great people aligned with our values, but want to sort of support and teach us what they have learned through their business journey. So yeah, you never want to feel that you know all the answers. And I'm big on that, and not being afraid to like listen and take advice and listen to different perspectives. I think that's important. I think you have to kind of put your ego at the door at times and be willing to take a different perspective on board, and also say, I'm not sure how to approach this or what to do, and not be afraid of saying that. It doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing, just haven't been through that experience and learnt that yet.
I think it's a real compliment if someone describes you as someone who asks for help, because it's not that common. And I think it's what differentiates like good leaders from great leaders. Great leaders know what they don't know and will ask and be really authentic and open about that. And I think that's at least what I've experienced in my career. And I think it comes through when you're talking to someone of their humility and, the fact that you get better by learning from others.
Yes.
It's a great attribute.
So. Humility is very important.
So Emma, you are and you're very humble, so you won't like me saying this, but you are such a huge success story and ongoing. You're only just getting started, really. What advice would you have for someone else wanting to start a business, or who's in a business and maybe they are struggling, they're finding things tough? What advice would you give them? There's probably lots of advice.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. I think something that I've really woken up to over the last year particularly is around really tuning in and trusting your instinct. And so often we know the answers and we just feel it. If something feels off, or you're going, that's a sign that something isn't right, and you have to deal with it. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, so you avoid it, but it will always catch up on you. And the earlier that you sort it out, the better, and less pain. So I think like trusting your instinct, tuning in more, and like dealing with things early, just getting on with it and sorting it, even if it's uncomfortable.
That is great advice. Trusting your gut, dealing with things early. I think you're absolutely right. And I've heard other business owners say the same thing, actually having the confidence to believe that you do know.
You do know.
What you're doing.
I know. And like we've had times where, much more experienced people in the industry have like come along and worked with us and sort of told us, no, this is how you meant to do it. And my gut has been like, no, I just don't think that's right. But you think, oh, well, they must know because they're the expert around. But no, it's you as the business owner, the custodian of that brand, know more than anyone. And so just don't let people push you around. I just don't allow it now. Just say no. Just don't take it. I think also, especially as women, we're a little bit afraid to like be assertive and clear and stand up for what we believe in, but we shouldn't be. We've really got to bring that out in us because we know the answers.
I love that. Every time I talk to you, I walk away feeling like a real pep and pep in my step. So hopefully everyone listening feels the same way. So Emma, what's next for the Emma Lewisham brand? Continuing to focus on the US. Is there a new product on the horizon? Anything kind of coming?
Yes, we've always got something in the works. I tell you, we're never sitting still, which you can't, and which we love. So this year is a mix of things, really. Further expansion in all the markets that we are in, especially the US, which is really exciting to see how that goes. We launched into Germany last year, and that market have just really taken off for us. So we're expanding further there and across the Nordics. So a lot more international expansion in the works. And then, yes, products. We didn't launch a new product last year, and we don't launch a lot of new products. So we really take our time to make sure that they have a distinction, they achieve something that hasn't been achieved before. And so we've got 2 new products coming out this year, which are phenomenal. Just absolutely brilliant. I'm really proud and passionate about them. A major brand announcement in May, which is like one of the proudest things that I feel we've ever achieved.
Oh, there are so much coming out. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, it's going to be hard to wait to find out what that is, but very exciting.
Going on. Yeah, I'm really feeling good about this year, and I want to bring that, hopefully that optimism to New Zealand. I'd like to see the country really get some buoyancy this year. And
I'm with you on that. I think as a country, we've lost our mojo a bit. And specifically when it comes, I think, to the small business economy, it's been a pretty tough time for a lot of businesses. And so your optimism, the optimism of other business owners is really infectious, and hopefully it's something that we can start talking more about and kind of getting that optimism back into our small business economy.
Come together and support each other at the moment and lift each other up.
Absolutely. And it's so important because we know that for our economy to improve, we're going to need the 97% of businesses, which are small businesses, to really feel buoyant and like they're forging ahead. So Emma, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always such a pleasure to speak with you. Your business story is so incredible. You're incredible. You've got to be the best advertisement for your products I've ever seen. I mean, look at your skin. So that you're a walking advertisement for how amazing your formulations are. But thank you for joining me. Always such a pleasure.
It's honestly such an honor, and I really appreciate the opportunity, Bridget. Thank you.